He was inside an abandoned desert shrine, completely alone, in the middle of the Sahara. He hadn't eaten in days. His water was gone. His body was shutting down. And in that moment, he made a decision. He decided to die. He cut his wrists. He lay back, and he waited. But something strange happened. His body refused. He was so dehydrated, so completely drained of fluid, that his blood had thickened to almost nothing. It wouldn't flow. He couldn't bleed out. And in that moment of total failure, something inside his brain switched. He later said it was the moment he truly decided to live. Not because he found hope, not because rescue was coming, but because his body had just proved it wasn't finished yet. This is the true story of Mauro Prosperi, an Italian police officer who got lost in the Sahara Desert during a race and survived 9.5 days alone in one of the deadliest environments on Earth. But this isn't just a survival story. This is a story about the human brain, about the exact psychological moment when people give up, and the strange, almost impossible reasons why some of them don't. The year was 1994, the Marathon des Sables, a race so brutal it has been called the toughest foot race on Earth. 6 days, 156 miles, across the Sahara Desert in Morocco. Competitors carry everything they need on their backs: food, sleeping gear, emergency supplies. The desert provides nothing. Temperatures during the day can reach 50 degrees Celsius. At night, they crash to near freezing. The sand shifts constantly. There are no landmarks, no trees, no rivers, just endless, empty desert in every direction. Mauro Prosperi had trained for this. He was an Olympic-level pentathlete, a former police officer, a man who had spent years pushing his body to its absolute limits. He was fit. He was experienced. He was prepared. Or so he thought. Day 4 of the race. Everything was going well. Mauro was running strong, keeping pace, feeling good. And then the sky changed. A wall of sand appeared on the horizon. Within minutes, it was everywhere. A sandstorm so violent that it turned day into night. Competitors scattered. Race flags were ripped from the ground and buried. Visibility dropped to almost zero. Mauro kept running. He thought he was following the course. He thought he was heading in the right direction. He was wrong. When the storm finally passed, 6 hours later, the desert was silent. And Mauro was completely alone. No other runners, no race flags, no landmarks. Just sand, in every direction, as far as he could see. He wasn't slightly off course. He wasn't a few miles from the route. The storm had pushed him 180 miles off course, deeper into the Sahara than any race official would ever think to look. He was, for all practical purposes, already lost beyond rescue. Here's where this story becomes fascinating. Most people in that situation would panic. People who have spent years in extreme physical training actually rewire the brain's threat detection system. Their amygdala, the part of the brain that triggers panic, responds differently to danger. It doesn't shut down, but it doesn't spiral either. It processes the threat and moves to problem solving. Mauro later said his grandfather had taught him from childhood not to fear death, to accept that life is fragile, to not waste energy fighting what cannot be controlled. That lesson, planted decades earlier, may have saved his life. Because in the Sahara, composure isn't just comfort, it's a survival tool. Without panic, Mauro began to think. He had a small amount of water left, enough for maybe a day. He had some food, energy bars and basic rations. He started walking. He tried to navigate by the sun. He looked for signs of the race route. Nothing. The desert looked the same in every direction. Day 1 passed. Day 2. His water ran out. His food ran out. And the Sahara began doing what it does to everything it touches. It started breaking him down. Dehydration does strange things to the human body. Your mouth dries until your tongue swells against your teeth. Your eyes ache from the inside. Your thoughts slow. Simple decisions take enormous effort, and the heat never stops. 50 degrees in the day, the sand radiating heat upward even in shade. There is no escape from it. On the third day alone, Mauro found something. A small structure, an abandoned marabou, a desert shrine used by nomadic Muslims for prayer. Inside, it was dark, and it was full of bats. He sat down. He thought. And then he did what he had to do. He caught the bats. He cut their heads off, and he drank their blood. Just to wet his throat. Just to put something, anything, into his body. He later said the blood was warm, almost sweet. It barely helped, but it bought him time. He also began collecting his own urine in a bottle, drinking it slowly, rationing it. Because in the Sahara, there is no clean water. There is only what your body can produce, and what you are willing to consume. Days passed inside that shrine. 1, 2, 3. He heard aircraft overhead, race officials searching. He lit fires. He waved. He screamed. Nothing. The aircraft never came close enough. The desert is too vast, too empty, too good at hiding things. And slowly, the realization settled in. No one was coming. He was going to die here, alone, in a shrine, in a country he wasn't even supposed to be in. Because without realizing it, wandering for days, he had crossed the border from Morocco into Algeria. He was now 291 kilometers off course, a distance so far from the race route that search teams had no reason to look there. This is when Mauro made the decision. If he was going to die anyway, he would choose how. He used a knife. He cut his wrists. He lay back in the shrine, and he closed his eyes. He thought about his wife, his children. He thought at least they would receive his pension. At least something would come from this. And then, nothing happened. The cuts bled a little, then stopped. His blood was so thick, so depleted of fluid, that his body simply refused to cooperate. He couldn't bleed enough to die. What happened next is one of the most psychologically interesting moments in any survival story ever recorded. Mauro described it as a kind of emotional reset. He had prepared himself for death. He had accepted it. He had even said goodbye. And then, nothing happened. And in that strange moment of failure, his brain did something remarkable. It committed to the opposite. Psychologists have documented this phenomenon in extreme survival cases. It's sometimes called post-acceptance reactivation. When the brain fully processes and accepts death, the survival instinct, which had been fighting the acceptance, suddenly has nothing left to fight against. And it surges. Not out of hope, not out of rescue or optimism, but out of something more primal, a biological refusal. The brain essentially says, if we're not dying, then we're surviving. Those are the only two options. And it begins problem-solving with an intensity that wasn't there before. Mauro got up. He went outside. He looked at the sky. He remembered that clouds tend to form over cooler land. He remembered which direction the clouds had been moving. He started walking. Not running, not desperately, just walking. One step at a time, methodically, calmly, like a man with nothing left to lose. Which, in a way, he was. Days more passed. He walked at night when it was cooler, rested under whatever shade he could find in the day. He ate lizards. He scraped moisture from rocks at dawn. He rationed every drop of urine he produced. His body was failing. He had lost nearly 18 kilograms. His kidneys were beginning to shut down. His skin was burned and cracked. He could barely stand. But he kept walking. And then, on the 9th day, he saw something. A young girl, a Tuareg girl, out in the desert alone. He thought he was hallucinating. He had seen things before over the past days, shapes in the sand, movements at the edge of his vision. But she didn't disappear. She stared at him, this broken, barely human figure stumbling across the sand. She ran. He collapsed. Hours later, a Berber family found him. They carried him inside. They gave him water. They sent for help. When Algerian authorities arrived, they almost didn't believe he had survived. He was taken to a military hospital. His kidneys had sustained serious damage. His liver was struggling. He had lost so much weight that doctors later said he was within hours of organ failure. But he was alive. When Mauro returned to Italy, his wife was furious. Not just relieved, furious. He had put himself through this voluntarily, for a race. And the worst part? He wanted to go back. Not despite what had happened to him, because of it. He described the desert not as the place that merely killed him, but as the place that taught him something no classroom ever could. He returned to the Marathon des Sables. Not once, 9 more times. And he finished every single one. He later became a running coach. He teaches other athletes the psychology of endurance, the acceptance of discomfort, the separation of fear from reality. The skills his grandfather gave him as a child in Rome that kept him alive in the Sahara 30 years later. So what does Mauro's story actually tell us about the human brain? Scientists who study extreme survival cases have identified a pattern. The people who die first in isolation and extreme environments are rarely the weakest. They are the most rigid, the ones who cannot accept that the situation is what it is. They spend their energy fighting reality instead of working within it. Mauro's calm acceptance of death paradoxically activated the survival instinct at full strength. His dehydration accidentally saved his life. His willingness to do the unthinkable, eating bats, drinking blood, drinking urine, kept his body functioning just enough. And his grandfather's lesson about accepting mortality without fear meant he never wasted a single calorie on panic. The Sahara is one of the deadliest places on Earth. It has swallowed entire armies. It has broken the most experienced explorers. It shows no mercy. But in 1994, a man with no water, no food, and no hope of rescue survived 9.5 days inside it. Not because he was the toughest, not because he was the luckiest, but because his brain, in its darkest moment, simply refused to accept the only alternative. And sometimes, that's enough. Enjoyed the video? Then please like and subscribe to the channel.